I've been doing hair and makeup as a freelance hairdresser and makeup artist, working in photo studios in New York and basically around the world for about 35 years. But in my very early 30s, I decided to move to Paris because I wanted to be in the center of what was happening fashion-wise. And within 2 months of being in Paris, I got my first cover of Vogue magazine. When that cover hit the newsstands, my career just exploded. Now I was charging $3,000 a day, and I was working every day. I had as much money as I wanted to spend on drugs. Suddenly it wasn't like pills and alcohol, now it was cocaine, and then heroin came into the picture. One day I was on a photo shoot in New York City, and the model who was on this photo shoot was a very beautiful redhead, and she began to talk to me about the Lord. God loves you, and this, and I was like, whatever. To me, she was a religious fanatic, and I really didn't have very much to say to her. I just let her talk. Before she left, she said, hey, Danny, do you mind if I pray for you? Right in the studio, she just took my hands, and she began to pray out loud, and I had never been around anybody praying out loud, And I began looking around at people going like, I just thought, this girl's nuts. Before she walked out, she said, look, you're in trouble. She goes, I know who you are. I've seen your work in magazines for years, and I know you work with all these famous celebrities, but you're in big trouble. And she said, so I just want to let you know that the day you call on the name of the Lord, He's going to set you free. And I said, oh, really? Like that. And I went like, you don't understand. I've gone way too far, And so she said, oh, no, there's no hopeless cases with Jesus. And I was like, okay, whatever, But listen, I will never call on the name of the Lord. That won't happen. And I won't ever come to your church. One of my contracts was for a clothing manufacturing company, and we were shooting down in the Caribbean, and I overdosed on heroin. They sent me back a few days later to New York, and they pulled my contract on a morals clause. And I didn't care. All I wanted to do was shoot dope. So one day I pulled a garbage can between my legs, and I just began to cut up everything that had my name on it. Anything, passports, driver's license. I put the keys on the table, and I just walked out and closed the door behind me, and I never went back. And I began to live on the streets. Day-to-day existence on the streets of New York was, you wake up, you're sick, you need drugs. I had gotten down to about 108 pounds. I developed hepatitis A, hepatitis B, hepatitis C. Every once in a while, living on the streets, I would go to a payphone, and I would call Wanda, and I would say, look, I need some money, and she would go, well, if you would come by the church today, we have choir practice tonight, I can give you $20 or, whatever. She never gave up on me. She never gave up on me. She never gave up on me. I didn't know it, but she had a whole team of her friends out here all praying for me, and they would pray for me in prayer meetings, where there's thousands of people there, crying out to God. I mean, they would pray for me, and what did I know? I didn't know everybody was praying for me. I started developing a lot of phobias on living on the street. I began to hear voices in my head. And it just began, it was constantly accusing me and constantly telling me how I would mess up. And then there was like another voice that started in, and I could hear them both at the same time. And the other voice would just curse and just spew out filthy language. There was a third voice that used to just laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. I was riding the trains, and this guy who was like a drug addict, who was also riding the train, said to me, you look like you're dying. And he said, there's a hospital at the next stop. You should go to the hospital, And I went, oh yeah, maybe I will. Because I didn't want to die on the street. I went into emergency, and I was sick. I mean, I was really sick. I don't know if it's something I remembered that Wanda had said to me, or whether like an angel whispered in my ear, but there was like one moment where I just heard like a sweet little voice in the midst of all that craziness, and it said, "The day you call on the name of the Lord, He's going to set you free." It was just at that moment that I cried out to God, that it was as if the Spirit of God just swept into that hospital room, and it was as if He was all around me and all in me and healing me and loving me. I don't even know what I was experiencing, but it was an overwhelming experience, and immediately all the voices in my head stopped. It was just that quickly. And that's been 11 years ago almost, and they've never come back. Well, Wanda came back into the picture when I was in the rehab. I wrote her a letter, and I told her what had happened. And she wrote me back a letter. It just said, like, it had 3 big letters on it, W-O-W. I said, wow. She couldn't believe it. I'll tell you the thing that blows me away more than anything is that God goes so much further than we ever dare to ask Him for. You know what I'm saying? Like when I called on the name of the Lord, I just wanted to get out of a jam. You know, and God says, no, I'll get you out of the jam, but I'm going to give you a new life. Not only that, I'll go even further than that. I'll stand you up in front of all the world, in front of audiences of thousands and thousands of people, so that others will know that they too can obtain mercy. You know, it's almost like a trophy, like you're His trophy that He wants to show off to the world and say, I can do this in somebody's life.